we had a 91% occupancy across all of our listings. Airbnb spends millions of dollars in Google ads. If you have a listing that has keywords that people are looking for, they would advertise your listing. I was never gonna be in the content creation space. And then I said, okay, I'm doing most of the time content. What if I just create a content studio? The way that I do it and how we teach students at ProHost is...
Welcome back to the Wealthy Business Podcast. I'm your host, Javi Chavez. Today, I'm with entrepreneur, educator, real estate investor, and friend, Ivan Tejeda. How are you doing today?
Thank you, man. Thank you for having me, brother. Appreciate you.
Awesome. I'm excited. So for those people who don't know, Ivan is one of our coaches over at Wealthy Investor, the head coach of the ProHost program.
Yep.
How many doors do you have?
18.
18?
Yeah.
And you're rolling out a lot of other things as well.
Yep.
So you got a space for, a studio set just like this.
Yep.
But I want to talk about Airbnb really quick.
Let's do it.
Why shouldn't somebody get into Airbnb right now?
Why shouldn't? That's a good question. Because usually I get why should they?
Yeah.
Why shouldn't they? I would say the best answer is someone who's not interested in real estate, obviously, in any way, shape, or form. And also people that just want to stay where they're at.
Okay.
I think that, the Airbnb is just one of the different veins that you could use to get your foot in the door when it comes to the real estate space. So many different things you could do, like we've learned through the programs and all these different things. But, you got wholesaling, you got flipping, all these different. I think that Airbnb is one of the easiest and fastest ways to start to see some income, right? Especially if you go the arbitrage route or the co-hosting route.
What is arbitrage?
So rental arbitrage is basically the ability to rent a property on Airbnb that you rented versus having to go out there and buy it. So in essence, how I like to explain it is that you're renting or buying a 12-month piece of time in a property, and then you're enhancing that same exact property by furnishing it, and then you're selling little blocks of time, right? So it's kind of like, in a way, think about when you used to, I don't know if you sold any candy or chips or something like that as a kid. You would go to Costco and buy this big box of chips or whatever, and then you would sell them one off, right? So that's the idea behind the rental arbitrage space or process.
Yeah, that was my first time in the principal's office.
Selling candy.
Yeah, my mom took me to Costco and I had all the candy, and I'd have a little lunch pail with an ice pack in it to keep all the candy so it wouldn't melt.
Yeah.
And then I would be slanging it, and the principals didn't like it very much. But yeah, so why then, with the current market, right? People say the interest rates are so high, some rentals aren't penciling out as much as they used to. Is now still a good time to get into Airbnb or? Yeah.
I would say yes, especially if you're going the route of arbitrage, because that interest rates and all of that doesn't matter when you're doing arbitrage, because at the end of the day, you're renting out a property. The rent is going to be fixed, at least for that period of time that you're renting it out. So interest rates doesn't matter. Now, I would also argue actually that if you're going to go out there and buy the properties, you have an advantage as an Airbnb host because you're going to cash flow more than if you're just renting it out traditionally. So it literally is a tool inside of your toolbox when you know what to do with Airbnb and managing in properties, and you have your whole setup and all of that, because now you can outcompete your regular investor that is looking to buy properties just to traditionally rent them out. If you're going to Airbnb that exact same property, you can afford to pay a little bit more points on interest rates. So for my students, the people at ProHost, they have a competitive advantage. They know that they do if they wanted to get into the market and start buying. And I think this is a great time for people who have real estate, hosting experience with Airbnb. It's a great time to actually go out and buy these properties because there's very little competition.
Got it. Okay. And are you listing on all the platforms, or are you just on Airbnb? Is there an advantage to being on VRBO and all these other things?
There's definitely an advantage to being in multiple platforms. I'm personally just an Airbnb.
Why?
And I'll explain why. Yeah. The main reason is because I have mastered my price strategy to the point where just last year we had a 91% occupancy across all of our listings, right? So having that kind of occupancy being so high, I don't need extra eyeballs to fill in my calendar, right? So it's fine for me to do that. However, for those of you that are just getting started in Airbnb and maybe you're sitting at 50% occupancy, 60% occupancy, then it would be a good idea for you to add it into different other platforms so that you get more eyeballs and get more bookings. But if you're doing it right, you can just rely on one platform, technically speaking, whether that be Airbnb or VRBO or HomeAway or whatever other ones.
Got it. So how is your occupancy at 91%?
Great question as well. So the way that I do it and how we teach the students at ProHost is we focus mainly on midterm rentals, right? So midterm rentals, for those that don't know, it's basically renting out your property for 30 days plus or 28 days plus, right? So we price strategize and make our listings be appealing to people who are looking to rent months at a time. By doing this, we take advantage of the occupancy being so high, right? Sure, you can make a little bit less money if you midterm rent it than if you short-term rent it, because usually there's more premiums in the little bites. But in the long run, having that longer, consistent, occupancy pays way better. Now, then after that, what we do, we strategize to get the midterm rentals, and then we fill in the gaps with short-term rentals. So how I teach the students is that the lead time for us to start reducing our prices, meaning from today to depending on the size of the property, from today to 2 weeks out, any nights that are not sold, we start to reduce our prices. The closer we are to the dates, the cheaper it is, because we want to make sure that we're flash selling them, right? Now that only happens from now to 2 or 3 weeks out, depending on the size of the property. You want to do it a little further out. But what that does is that it allows us to have higher premiums on the nights that are beyond that time frame. And then we have discounts that are called the length of stay discounts that are only applicable, or the people that can only take advantage of those discounts are people who are booking 30 days plus, right?
Got it.
So that's part of that price strategy, where they could only get a favorable price if they're booking longer term. And then we flash sell in between. Which
that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so all of your long midterm rentals, the prospective buyers, or I guess the what are they, hosts? Not hosts.
The guests?
Yeah, the guests. So all these prospective guests, you're getting a lot of the midterm stuff on Airbnb, because I thought you had to go find certain websites that are just for midterm rentals.
No, you can actually get them through Airbnb as well.
Gotcha.
For sure.
So
Yeah.
that's huge.
Yeah.
So if you're brand new and want to get into the arbitrage space, where do I start?
First thing you got to do is do market research. And by that, I mean, start off with what kind of guests are you going to attract in the location where you're at? Because I usually tell people to start in their backyard. And by that, I mean, don't go into different markets if you could avoid it, right? Obviously, there's scenarios where it's super difficult to do Airbnb because regulations, California, New York, all these different places. I understand at that point, you start opening up the radius, and I like the proximity. But, for someone that's just starting out, I would say to start and get an Airbnb that's near hotels. And what I mean by that, because this is the simplest way of doing market research, what I mean by that is mostly you are piggybacking off of their market research by just posting up next to them and taking some of their business. That's my strategy. So my Airbnbs, my very first one, I got it near, literally within walking distance of a hotel, because I know that I'm going to bring a better product to the table than the hotel will, right?
Yes.
It was a 1-bedroom apartment. It has a kitchen. I understood that people are gravitating towards Airbnbs anyways. They prefer Airbnb, some people, than going into a hotel, because more privacy. You don't have to deal with lobby. People are very much introverted. They don't want to deal with other people. So I guess the thought process there is that you're literally doing what basically Burger King does. You ever seen a McDonald's in one corner? Next thing you know, right next to it, there's a Burger King, there's a Wendy's, there's a Taco Bell. So we're literally just doing that. The hotel industry invested millions of dollars in market research before they built this building. They know for certain that there's people that are going to book these nights.
That's so smart.
So literally just go and post up next to them and take some of their pie.
Got it. Okay, I post up next to them. Then what's my pitch to a homeowner?
To a landlord. Good question too. So the pitch is really simple depending upon the homeowner or the landlord. So for example, for me, I'm in apartment communities. And with apartment communities is a little different pitch than if you're dealing with an actual landlord. But I'll give you an apartment community basis there. So there, you mostly target apartment communities that have a higher vacancy, right? Because these are apartment communities that are hurting, that they need to, let some people, rent these properties. So they're going to be a little bit more open to the idea of, the short-term rental space and all of that. And, landlords and apartment communities are very much aware of this movement now that a lot of people are looking to book. So they're not oblivious, the majority of them. But, we literally give the scripts on per host and how to actually go about it and all that stuff. But in a nutshell, all you're doing is piggybacking off of their pain points, which is, we're professionals. We're going to make sure that we vet, every single person that is going to stay in our properties. If everything goes well with our business, then you will have infinite amount of renewals with us and blase, all these different things. And the same thing is true for the landlord side of things, understanding what their pain points are.
Entrepreneurs, if you're looking to grow your business, there is no better thing to do than build your personal brand. At Pineda Media, we will coach you on exactly what to do to build that brand in 2023. Then we take that coaching and apply it. We will film, edit, and produce all of your content for social so you can focus on the things that matter in building your business. If you want to learn more, click the link below to book a call with my team.
As a business, one of the main pain points are for landlords is that they take care of the property, right? Take care of the property, vacancies, dealing with the turnover and all of that. If I run an Airbnb business in your property that you own, it is in my best interest to make sure that it is well taken care of. It's always going to be in for sale condition. If my business is doing well and I'm renting it out, like you'll always have a tenant. You never have to go find another tenant, right? I'm going to take care of it like if it was my own. You can go check up on it if you need to. Like it's all of these different things that you need to identify really what their pain points are and then just throw them in their face and let them know that you are the best thing that could happen to them.
So are you in charge of the repairs and stuff too, or are you still passing that off to the landlord?
No, still passing off the major repairs to the landlord, 100%. And what I like also about doing them in apartment communities is that a repair can literally be changing a light bulb.
For sure.
Right? Yeah. I don't have to go out and hire a handyman or anything like that to change a light bulb, change a filter, air filter or anything like that. Now, when you do it with the landlord route, it's mostly like, appliances going bad and all these different things. Everything else you're kind of, responsible for.
Yeah, so like if somebody like messes up the walls or with paint and stuff like that, are you going to come in and paint or are you going to still dish that off to
No, that would be on us. Yeah.
Okay,
if it was caused by us, then we take care of it. Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah.
Okay. And then so how did you get started in this industry?
So my start was, funny enough, I wanted to get into real estate from, since I was young. I've grown up to be an entrepreneur all my life. I was stuck in a 9-to-5. And
what were you doing?
I was in sales for insurance sales. I worked for Allstate. And I always knew that I wanted to get into real estate. I just didn't know how. Most of the times I was always thinking I needed to raise a bunch of capital in order to be able to become an investor. And that's a lot of people. That's what they think. But then my wife and I, we were moving from Miami 5 years ago, from Miami to Charlotte, North Carolina. And it was basically a way for us to start fresh. And, start to create a life for ourselves that eventually we can bring our children in because we didn't have any kids at the time. And 3 months before moving, I did some research on real estate and how I can get into it. And I had stayed at Airbnbs before. And I'm sure most people that have stayed on an Airbnb have told themselves or wondered in that moment, like, I wonder if I could do this. Like looking around, has that ever happened to you?
For sure.
It's like, man, I should get an Airbnb. Like, this is nice. I wonder how hard it is. All right.
Yeah, every time I stay, especially now, I'm like, I wonder how much money they're making, everything. But even before being in real estate, I was always looking and I'm like, this is probably a great business. But sorry, continue.
100%. And that obviously planted the seed in my mind. And then, down the road, I was like, I should look into a little bit more into this Airbnb thing. And back then, 5 years ago, arbitrage wasn't as popular as it is today. And, basically did 3 months worth of research. There wasn't any real courses or anything like that at the time like we have now. I didn't have a mentor in the space like our students have. So I did 3 months of research. By the time we moved, or before we moved, we needed to rent a property because we were buying a property in Charlotte, North Carolina, but it wasn't going to be finished. It was new construction. So we needed to rent out a space for the gap in time because I was starting a new job. I had to go sooner before it was done, all that jazz. But the idea was that I would lock in one of the leases or the lease of this apartment, and I would do it by the book, how it's supposed to be done, get the clause waived of the lease agreement to make sure that I could rent it out after. So we rented that property so we can stay in it, literally hauled a bunch of our own stuff into this apartment. The living room was full of boxes and all these things. The benefit there is that for that first unit, we used a lot of our own furniture, which made it to where we started that one listing with $2,000, right? So it was a lot of our own furniture plus $2,000 for first month's rent.
Quick note. So how much does somebody need? So I know you're doing it at the affordable rate, right? Like $2,000 you got into the listing. So what's the typical capital requirement for somebody getting into arbitrage?
Arbitrage is $5,000.
Okay.
Yeah, if you're doing like a studio apartment or a one bedroom, $5,000 in most places, obviously depending on the rates. Like you can't get that in New York or California because rents are incredible. But if you, let's say you have a rent that's $1,400, $1,500, right? That plus everything else should be $5,000 or less.
Wow.
Like we just got one like 2 months ago or so in Charlotte again, another one, and it cost me $3,000 all in.
Wow. And projected profit on like a monthly basis, what are you expecting?
So our average is $1,200 per door on these. So within 3 months, we already in profit.
Crushing it.
Yeah.
That's huge. Okay, so back to your story. So keep going. So $2,000.
Yeah, started with that one unit, and then we ended up getting in that same apartment building today still, and we're still in that same apartment building. We proved ourselves, right? There's certain things that occurred that obviously things happen, right? So if you set the right expectations with the community, the management and all of that, and you let them know that, hey, you can't guarantee me that any other residents are gonna, be good all the time. There's gonna be things that happen, but this is what we'll do if something does happen. Like we have zero tolerance for, parties, negligence, parties, people smoking, all these different things. So just know that. And I built a relationship with them to where they, basically said, hey, you can continue getting. Now I'm capped. They don't let me get any more.
How many do you have?
9 in that one apartment.
That's crazy.
I have 9 in that same building now. And it was the first one. That was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And now we've created a system where not only do we have 9 in that building, but the building directly across, not associated with this one, we have another like 8 or 9. So we've created a system where now in one of the buildings, we have a storage room, right? Where all of the inventory stays, linens, towels, all the consumables, paper towels, toilet paper, all that stuff. And our cleaners just go in there, restock whatever they need, and they go clean whatever apartment needs to get cleaned. So now it's been in a way more like systemized way. And then the goal there was, now we have this massive like cash flowing machine because we're averaging around $40,000 a month in revenue.
Wow.
We're probably 50% margins, right? So I would say we're like netting 20 grand a month or so.
And how big's your like operation team wise? So it's you, who else?
So I wouldn't even consider myself as part of the team because I do price strategy mostly because I enjoy it. But the team is very small, dude. Like we have my reservations coordinator, Gabby. And then we also have my main cleaner. And then she has her own team that I don't really communicate with. So I empowered her. I don't even know them really. I say, hey, listen, I'm just going to send them all to you because I have so many. It's like dedicated to me. That's one of the benefits of growing. It just gets easier when you're bigger.
Oh, for sure.
In Airbnb, and I'm sure in many areas, the more you have, the more flexibility you have in so many ways. A lot of people think it's like 18, you must not have any time at all. No, it's the complete opposite. Like I'm here.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm in Vegas. My stuff is in Charlotte.
Yeah, well, that's the beauty of building an actual business, right? So it's just like we talked about all day. So for those people who don't know, we just did 4 days of workshops. Ivan's been here grinding it out. He's been speaking like crazy. So I'm grateful that you decided to come back and chat with me for a little bit. But
of course,
the big thing is, Ryan spends, an hour a week on his real estate business. Personally, I spend maybe like 3 hours a week on the real estate business because we have operators and a whole team of people who eat, breathe, and sleep that business.
Right.
And that's what, I think the goal is with all entrepreneurship is to build something that is an asset and it's like a rental property. Once you build a business the right way, or an Airbnb, right? It's just paying you every single month. And obviously, you step in when you need to and things.
For sure. You got to put out fires and all these different things.
And I think Ryan enjoys getting into the business. I enjoy it too, like solving problems, stuff like that. But like, it's not my main thing, which is really, really fun. I get to go focus on the next thing. So with that being said, what takes up the majority of your time?
What takes up the majority of my time currently is content. Nothing to do with the Airbnb business. It's like Airbnb business is so systematized.
Entrepreneurs, if you're still feeling stuck in your business in 2023, it's probably because you don't have the right SOPs in place. You still don't understand how to put people in the right seats to maximize their productivity. And you probably don't have the right KPIs to measure those people against. So for that reason, we've rolled out Wealthy Business. Wealthy Business is where we coach entrepreneurs every single week on those exact things and how to scale and grow. It's the most comprehensive curriculum we've ever rolled out. And if you have any questions or you're curious about what it entails, click the link below to book a free call with my team.
But when it comes to the Airbnb business, what takes majority of my time now, I would say putting out little fires, right? Price strategy. In the morning, I usually wake up, have my coffee, and then I'm there for like 10, 15 minutes. Price strategizing, you know, that gap then in time that I told you within now to 2 or 3 weeks, I'm just fixing prices, making sure, playing Airbnb Tetris is what I call it, moving people around from one calendar to the other. Because we have units in the same buildings or literally across from each other, it's easy for me to move people around so that I have a consistent stay and it's not blocking, you know, it's not blocking calendar out.
So Airbnb allows you to do that. So if you have like a big unit or a big group of units in the building, right, you're able to just move them out. It
has to be approved by them.
Oh, I see.
So what we do is like, hey, Mr. Guest, we have a maintenance issue that we need to address. We don't want to inconvenience you. If it's okay, we're gonna move you to this unit. It's the exact same thing, same layout, very similar furniture. And they're like, they don't care. And it's like, oh, absolutely, thank you. Or sometimes we'll upgrade them because it's worth it for us, because maybe it's a nicer unit in a nicer one of the buildings or whatever, and we'll upgrade them, and they're obviously super happy about that. So we have our ways. That's how we're able to achieve that 91% occupancy. We don't just let it be. You know, people expect that kind of occupancy rate, but oftentimes forget about all the things that makes it possible.
For sure. So what other things make it possible? Besides just moving them around, or is that the key? So it's
moving them around, price strategy, 100%. Price strategy is very, very important. Of course, having the right SEO for Airbnb, like having the right
like descriptions
and all of that for the listings.
Because
we cater more so towards working travelers and travel nurses, we have verbiage in there that, you know, they would be attracted to. We also use keywords that will make it to where people would book straight from Google, because a lot of people don't know, but Airbnb spends millions of dollars in Google ads. And if you have a listing that has keywords that people are looking for, like king bed, whatever, suite or whatnot, and they're looking in Charlotte, in my case, or they're looking here in Vegas or whatnot, they would advertise your listing, and I didn't pay for that advertising. So it's a lot of things combined, but yeah.
Love it. So if you're spending all your time on content, you're building out your studio. So talk to me about that process.
So that's been long. It's been a very long process, you know. Luckily, I got this studio over there back home as well, and I got it. I thought I was getting a sick deal, and I got like 2 months free, basically, so that I can go in there and do the things that we wanted to do. So we have it basically to cater to 2 types of content. We got the short form content room, which is basically a room similar to this one, relatively big, but the idea there is that there is going to be different stations that people can record from short form content, right? So they'll basically have the whole room to themselves. We have this rolling gimbal that has the lighting. It has the ability to put your phone or an actual camera.
Oh, nice.
It has an actual microphone thing, and you literally roll it around. And if you want to do content with this background, it's like, boom, they do it, and then just roll it and do the next one and all that.
That's sick.
Yeah. So that also operates as a changing room, because they'll be able to lock the door, what have you, and change clothes. So they can knock out content all they want. Then the other room is the podcast room, which I'm excited about as well. And that's just, you know, podcast or long form content. Of course, we'll extract short form from all of that and all that good stuff. But we're going to be catering towards, you know, just like Pineda Media, working professionals that are blue collar or what have you, that they need to spend in marketing and all of that stuff. And we're going to mainly, obviously, target the locals, like the people that are there, so they can come in and have that experience. They don't have to go out there and spend money on camera and equipment and all of that. We'll do it all for them. Which
is huge. And it's funny you bring up like blue collar workers. One of our best clients that's gotten the best results in a short period of time, they're window tint guys. They have a podcast that they run. Shout out, I think it's Green Valley Window Tint. Shout out to you guys.
To Green Valley.
So they come in and some of their reels have gotten like hundreds of thousands of views.
Really?
Yeah.
And it's talking head?
Yeah. Well, so it's the podcast and it's chopped up clips from the podcast. And I think it's because this is a good lesson for people who are just like afraid to put out content, right? They're older white gentlemen, and the videos are all popping off on Facebook.
No way.
And so I think it's just a demographic that you don't typically see on podcasts.
Yeah.
That is underserved apparently, and so now they're loving it. So that's it's insane. Great. So yeah, huge case study. But again, I think it's a lesson in put out content. You're gonna find your tribe, or you're gonna find the people who resonate with it. Yeah. You just got to keep staying consistent.
For sure.
But my next question for you is, how are you so stylish? Like, dude, every time I see you, like for people who have been to WealthCon, you've seen Ivan on stage multiple times. Like, are you the mastermind behind this?
Well, actually, no, man. I think that, so for me, just a few months ago, I would say maybe a year ago, I talked to my friend Sebastian Gomez. He's an influencer. He's Two Trends. Shout out to Two Trends.
Yeah.
He hooked me up, man. He took me. I told him, bro, he's one of my best friends. I was his best man at his wedding. Yeah. He was one of my groomsmen in my wedding. One of my best friends. He has, he's very stylish, influential dude. Him and his wife have a really big following. But anyways, I told him, like, dude, I want to just change up my style. And we went to Zara one day. He's like, dude, this is all you got to do, man. Go to Zara. He taught me about the cool colors versus the warm colors, how to match it. And it literally changed my style from that point on. I learned what that looks like. But yeah, like for example, this, I bought it with him. When I bought it, I actually wore this one on stage. I think it was when I spoke in LA when I was one of the speakers for WealthCon. But yeah, I give him a lot of the credit. But from now on, like whenever I buy something, I'm putting it together, but mostly because I understand the concept.
You learned, right? Just like anything, you got a coach.
Yes, literally.
You learned, and now you're crushing it.
Now you're crushing it. Thank you, though.
So what's it like, being an entrepreneur now with kids? Because how old are your kids?
1 and 3.
So what's that challenge like, trying to run? And luckily you have your own schedule that you can kind of set, but what's it like, trying to build a business while still being a father and being present? No,
that's a great question, man. In the very beginning, when we started our Airbnb business, that was a huge motivator for myself and my wife, of course, as well. But, I actually hacked my mind into thinking that my wife had already told me that we were pregnant. Because I knew that was going to light up a fire in me. So one of the main goals for us was, before we had kids, is that we really went hard on this business to where I can take paternity leave and be there for her when we had the baby, and be there for my child those first 3 months at the very least. So that was a really big driving force. And then today, it's not any different. The only difference now is that now I want to give them an awesome life, right? I want to be able to provide for them and my family as a whole. Now, when it becomes time to, how do you manage spending time with the kids and, dedicating time for the business, it's really just kind of like Ryan, dude, like really setting in stone what the priorities are, dedicating time to the business when it's time to do business, but being also respectful of the time that it's time to be with the family. And of course, sometimes you need to alternate. You need to give a little here, then a little less there. But going back to that original structure is super crucial. Like, I know there's times that things are popping off here at the office where Ryan needs to spend more time here, and he has to, communicate back home with the boss and let him know, hey, listen, I need to do this. Same here. But for me, they're a great motivation. And I remember not too long ago, before I got the studio, I had a home office. And I'll tell this story because maybe a lot of parents and dads could maybe relate that have home offices or that work from home. And they were I call them my best distractions, because I'll be back home and then I'll see from my door there's like this little glass squares on my door from my office, and they'll just come up and daddy and distractions, and I'm like, hey, how are you? Like I'm just feeding the fire here, right?
Yeah.
So the reason why I call it the best distraction is because I don't hate it. Like I love that.
Yeah.
But there was a distraction nonetheless.
For sure.
So actually, funny story, the way that the studio came about was that I knew that I needed a space where that didn't happen so that my productivity can stay consistent when it's time to work. But then my entrepreneurial spirit took place, and I'm like, okay, how can I justify getting an actual office space
There we go.
to where I don't have to pay for it? Like, how can I create a business around it so that it pays itself and all of that? So that's how the ProHost Studios was really born, is out of like necessity in a way, like me not wanting to pay for office space and just kind of like, and then I said, okay, I'm doing most of the time content. I'm doing content here at home. What if I just create a content studio? And then what if I use that studio for myself? But what if I also open it up to other people? I'll for sure cover my rent if I get like 2 or 3 clients at the very least. So that's how that was actually born. I was never gonna be in the like content creation space per se. That's how it happened.
That's so funny. But it's entrepreneurship is all about creativity, and exactly what you mentioned. It's like, it's actually the same exact premise of Airbnb too. When it first started, it's like,
literally,
dude, I have an extra 2 bedrooms.
Yep.
I might as well just rent them out, I guess.
Right.
And it justifies the rent and it pays for everything. So
literally,
yeah, that's just how your mind works.
And it's totally on brand too, because I'm literally renting out a space, right? I'm enhancing the space, just like I finished saying. And then I'm renting it out, but now instead of per night, I'm renting it out per hour in the studio. Like you can rent out this space for X amount of hours. And then actually the profitability per square footage is going to be way better than an Airbnb. So that's it's huge. Within the same vein.
Love
for
it.
Sure.
And then I know previously when you were running like the coaching business, you did have like a COO, and I think you were building out some other employees. Like, how is the coaching business side of things? Like, where are you guys at team wise? What are your goals over there?
So that's something now that we really want to blow up, the coaching program, and really expose that. I still have a COO. We just brought on a marketing team that will be doing ad buying and handling like sales calls and all these different things.
Nice.
So we're going to be doing a really big push on that, and really just trying to get more people into the coaching program, of course. We're gearing up for Black Friday. We're going to have the ProHost challenges coming up here. There's going to be 2-3 days modeled behind all of the stuff that you guys are doing as well. Luckily enough, like Ryan being the mentor that he is, he's helping me out with that, because it's all going to serve the same ecosystem. It's all going to feed back to the same place.
Yeah, and that and you winning is like, we want to see you win, right? Like, and so why not share all the knowledge that we have? And you're gonna come crush it, right?
No,
so
for sure.
Do you have a date for the challenge yet, or?
I think it's gonna be on from the 30th to the 2nd of this, the 30th of December to the December? Yeah.
Oh, New Year challenge?
No, I'm so sorry. No.
December?
30th of November.
Oh, coming up right now. Yeah. Okay.
30th of November to like the 2nd of December.
Cool. Well, so if you guys want to get into Airbnb,
and you watch this podcast in time.
Yeah, and it'll be out. I'm low on content, so it'll be out in like the next couple of days.
No, but people can watch it literally in a year from now. It's like, hey, you missed the boat, but we'll still be having something
still
around.
Go to ProHost. What's the website?
Well, you could go to Ivan Tejeda.
There we go.
On Instagram, and then you'll be able to find it there.
There we go. That's perfect. Yeah, man. So like how, and this is kind of back to the same vein of family, but so how do you still maintain, like, it seems like obviously on Instagram you don't, like, it's hard to tell if it's really the case. I think it is, where you and your wife seem like you guys are going on date nights. You guys seem very healthy.
Yeah.
So how do you maintain that relationship while still, trying to grind and hustle as hard as you can for your business?
Great question, man. It definitely, everything that we post, at least in Instagram, it's very organic from the standpoint that we don't fake the funk. I know there's definitely a lot of couples that are posting things, and next thing you know, like in the personal life, it's like they're not even friends type of thing. But for us, no, we do have an amazing relationship. And it's mostly because, number one, we share a lot of the commonalities in our faith. We're both Christian. We aspire for the same goals. Like I call her my ride or die, because she's always down for like literally whatever. I use this joke is that if it's the middle of the day and I say, babe, let's go kayaking. It's the middle of the day. It's like, hey, I don't know. I'm taking care of the kids, but we'll figure it out. But I'm down. Let's go. Like she's literally that girl. Like spontaneous. She's down for whatever, and that's true. also with our goals as a family and our business. She comes to most of the events that she's always by my side. She's just a super supportive wife. So it's when you have someone like that by your side, it's hard to not have, a good relationship. We're literally best friends. We enjoy ourselves, but we also have healthy boundaries. We have healthy structure in our marriage, in the time that we spend together. After work, we put the kids down. We have a really tight schedule for our kids. By 8 o'clock, they're both in bed. They're super good with that ever since they were little. And that's mommy and daddy time to watch TV, catch up on our day, all of these different things. Friday nights, we'll go on date nights. And then throughout the day, communication and all that stuff. But the cliche is that like mainly the communication is there. If there's a lot of stuff going on at work, as long as I communicate to her, hey, this is what's going on. She's like, okay, no, I get that. Let's go, like do it. And she's just super supportive.
Love that. And so how, cause I'm sure it's been practiced over time. Like how have you guys been able to establish that level of communication?
So funny enough, when we first started dating before we got married, we had a kind of a pitfall where we were gonna break up.
Oh wow.
And this was actually something that from the very beginning, I didn't believe in breaking up and getting back together. And I set that standard from the very beginning. I'm just not I'm the type of person that if my yes is yes, my no's are no's. So I told her, as in the process of us talking, I told her, hopefully these things work out. Obviously I'm paraphrasing here, but if we were to ever break up, like we're done. We're not going to go back and forth, because I just really wanted to set in stone that you can't cop out. Like if you're really going to cop out, like you're out.
For sure.
So I remember in this, period of us being in the verge of breaking up, mostly because of her not wanting to deal with it anymore. I told her, hey, I completely understand if that's really what you want to do, but I would love for us to sit down with our mentors at the time. We had mentors within our church and stuff, and let's sit down with them and see what they say. And then if we decide to part ways from there, like it's fine. At least we did what we needed to do. And long story short, that conversation with our mentors saved our relationship. Wow. Because it really calibrated our expectations. We were in completely opposite sides of the spectrum. She had these crazy expectations that it's all, roses and butterflies and getting gifts every other day and, getting attention and love, all of the love languages. My wife has all love languages. She doesn't have a love language. She has all of them.
I love that.
Right? So she literally, but the reason for that is because her dad is such a amazing dad. She's a only child.
Set the standard.
Yeah, only child. He would always be so loving, affirming, and all of these different things. And that's what comes out of that, right? Like you have a single child, a girl, where daddy is taking care, always affirming and all these different things. So I had that to go up against. And I was on the other side of the spectrum where I grew up with my parents for the most part in my childhood. I didn't being affectionate and all of that was not in my nature. So when we sat down with our mentors at the time, they pretty much just say, hey, listen, Jenny, her name is Jenny. Yeah. Jenny, you this is not how it works. Like if you do get married and all these different things, like the reality is that your expectations are way up here. You should bring them to a healthy place. Like you should expect your husband or at that point, your partner to treat you right and all of these different things. Cause I was way down here. And then Ivan, you need to come up here and kind of meet in the middle. So it literally calibrated us to where, now we can start working from there. And ever since that conversation, we just been on a climb as far as like our relationship goes.
That's huge. And so how do you stay intentional, right? Because I think it's easy for people to work really hard and this can be for anything, but we'll talk about it for relationships. But like, how do you continue to stay intentional and not drop back to that baseline?
That's a really good question because it's something that in full transparency, we talk about that to this day because it's easy for us to go back to our normal way of being, like, and that for that being like me not being as attentive and giving the affirmations and giving all these things, but it's really like you said, having that intention. You literally, for me, I have to be intentional about how I want to be with my wife and to my wife, right? I have to remind myself that that's the way that she likes to be loved, right? That's the way that she's going to feel loved. Because one of the biggest mistakes that we do as men is to try to love our significant other the way that we like to feel loved.
Oh, for sure.
Which is like, protection, provision, all these different ways. Like for us, man, it's simple. We just need respect. We need to, we like, for the most part, like to be served, like being taken care of. Some of us like words of affirmation, you know what I'm saying? Like to stay motivation, right? That's awesome. But for women, it's so much more complicated, and I know it firsthand, of course, but being intentional is the right word.
For sure.
Making a decision every single day to cater to your significant other. That's what that really is.
100%. And I think a lot of people, they have moments in their day where they're like, it's a choice. It's like, I could either say something really nice right now, or I could not, or I could, I'm stopping on the way home. I could go do some flowers. If your wife or girlfriend, your partner likes flowers, whatever. It's like everything that you do, you have two choices all the time. And, it's sometimes it's difficult, but you got to make the the intentional decision.
100%. And one thing that I'll throw on there too is also setting the standard from the very beginning. Like, for example, we never yell at each other. We don't curse at each other. Like, that has never been something that we, partake in. It was like a zero tolerance from both of our ends. Like, we will never, disrespect each other in any way, shape, or form, because that just deteriorates the relationship
for sure
with time. And so setting those boundaries and drawing the line on the sand from the very beginning is super important, because it's hard to then learn it, to then divert back to how it should have been. Because there's, when you implement change here in the office, some people fall off because people don't like change. And that's very much true in a relationship. We'll, as a couple, we'll learn something, and it's hard for us to implement it or undo something that we were doing wrong to then implement what we should be doing right. It's just harder.
For sure.
So that's why for me, before I got married, before I was in a relationship, I did my own soul searching, due diligence, and how I can be the best possible husband for my future wife. Like, I worked on myself. I took that time to work on myself. And then it doesn't hurt the fact that for me, I'm not the type of guy that needs to have someone. Like, I was always fine with being single. I never had any issues with being single. And I think that's why God brought me a spouse, because he said, okay, you're ready. Because if you have that attitude in the sense of I don't need this person, I just want this person in my life, right?
Yeah.
It's a completely different ballgame.
Totally. And you're gonna settle, right? Yeah. I think, and this is for men, women, whoever, when you're out actively looking for a partner, you'll find one.
Yeah.
But
it's not going to be the right one.
Yeah, it won't be the right one. Or you're going to make compromises for things, or you're going to be more willing to overlook red flags for whatever. It's just the way it is, right? But if you're taking the time to work on yourself, and then more importantly, you will attract that person into your life just by the person you become.
100%.
So I'm huge on that. And something that you mentioned too, it's funny, I literally said this on stage about hiring people, but it's the same in your relationship and whatever. It's like, your people will either rise or fall to your standard, right? And that's I think that's the same thing with your partner, right? 100%. Your partner will either, and again, it sounds a little harsh when I'm talking about a partner, but they will either rise to your standard, or they're not the partner for you. And then, you move on to the next one, and you're going to find somebody who's going to meet that standard.
Yes, 100%.
And obviously you have to rise to their standard too, right? So it goes both ways.
It's literally like a business, honestly. It's like marriage and relationships operates very much like I don't know which one came first, the chicken or the egg, but at the end of the day, it really does operate as a business.
Yeah.
And that's just the reality of it.
Totally. Well, and it's, business is just understanding people and understanding how to deal with people. Obviously now marriage and a relationship is taking that to the extreme, right? Because you're dealing with so many emotions all the time, and how to navigate those things.
Yeah.
I think that's huge. But Ivan, I don't want you to stop, hold you up from eating.
Oh no, you're good.
You've been starving for the last 8 hours,
I skipped lunch. We were doing this thing.
Yeah, I appreciate you, man. What's one piece of advice that you want to impart to the world? If you died tomorrow, what would your last piece of advice be?
I'll say this quote that I always say that I've kept so close to me for many years, and it's that I'd rather live with a failure than a regret. I'd rather live with knowing that I tried something and I failed miserably and I fell on my face than me regretting not ever doing it. They say there's a saying out there somewhere that's the most gifts that you'll find is in the cemetery, where a lot of people didn't go after that dream or anything like that, or they had a gift and never actually gave it its full potential for it to flourish into something. And you know, the biggest advice I would give someone, especially if you're young, like, just go and try something. I lived a lifestyle where, especially in the young age, that I was doing a lot of things. And, you know, now in hindsight, like I was always being ridiculed, like by friends, families, like you're doing that, you're doing that, you're doing that, you're doing so many different things. But yeah, I'm in my 20s. I'm like doing everything. Yeah. I was just so motivated. I didn't know what was going to stick, all that. So finally Airbnb came around and it kind of stuck, and I stuck with it. But yeah, I lived through that same philosophy all my life. It's like, I'd rather go after it and fail.
That's huge, right? And you know, I relate to that a lot, right?
Yeah.
Like when I was, and I still am in my 20s, but like early on, I was trying so many different things. I tell the story all the time. I quit my job every year.
Literally, me too.
Yeah, I'd try a bunch of different stuff, or I'd max out my compensation plan, or I'd get bored.
Yep.
And people would always be like, "Where are you working out again?" I'm like, yeah, but and even here, right? People like it moves so quickly, and I love that. And so huge mic drop. Ivan, where can people find more about you?
They could go to Instagram and find me at Ivan Tejeda, IvanTejeda. That's the most active that I am, but you can find me on all platforms, really. YouTube, TikTok, all these other places as well.
Sweet.
Yep.
Well, that was great, man.
Thank you, brother.
Thanks, everybody. Peace.
I'll see you at the top. Let's